how to make $1 million, I know we'd all be millionaires. Show of hands who agree with that. If school taught us to be millionaires, we would all be millionaires. But I have a gentleman here who knows how to make $1 million, and I'm just going to introduce him like that and keep your attention right here, because every word he says is valuable. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jonathan Weaver. Please give him a big round of applause.
Do what you've always done, and you'll get what you always got. It's not true. The pie is getting smaller. Competition is getting stronger. Companies that used to dominate no longer exist. So you must get better. What I'd like to do today is share with you a proven recipe that I've used to help myself make more than $1 million in real estate. It's a recipe that I've used to set a world record. It's a recipe I've used to have a successful marriage. So I just want to find out why you're in my audience today. So, if you could raise your hand if you want to make more money. Thank you. Raise your hand if you want to take more vacations. Okay. Raise your hand if you want to have more free time and work fewer hours. Fantastic. It seems like we've got the right people here in my audience. Before I give you the recipe, may I have permission to tell you a little bit about me so that you might understand why you should listen to me for the next 30 minutes? So I'm going to go backwards in time to 1990. And if you had come to me at the end of 1990 and asked me how my life was, I would have told you that I was 6 years, graduated from Durham College, where I went with Ken Upshaw. And I had learned a business that had made me, that I had made over $100,000, and I had just gotten married, and my life was fantastic. And 2 years later, at the end of 1992, if you had asked me how my life was going, I would have said it was awful, because I had just lost my marriage, and I had just ruined my finances for the time being. And it was primarily because I owned a company and worked 80 hours a week and never saw my wife. And by the time I heard her say, "I'd rather have you than the money," it was too late. By the time I came home, she was already resentful and we couldn't figure it out. So I'm going to tell you the story that I came home on a Saturday and I said, "Honey, we should take all our problems and we'll put them in a shoebox and we'll bury them in our backyard, and then we'll renew our vows here in the kitchen and we'll start our life over. Or I'll go upstairs, grab 5 suits, and I'll take the car with the payments on it." Well, Monty Hall got what was behind door number 1, and I left. Now on Wednesday was our normal. We were in marriage counseling, and on marriage counseling on Wednesday, I stopped and went to the marriage counselor and said, "Hi, I'm here." And he said, "Where's Kelly?" And I said, "Kelly's not coming." And he said, "Why isn't Kelly coming?" And I said, "Kelly's not coming because it's over." And he said, "Well, it's very difficult for me to help you with marriage counseling if she's not coming and it's over." And I said, "Well, I never want this to happen again." And so the marriage counselor said, "Okay, I'll help you." He said, "What do all the women you've ever been with have in common?" And I said, "Well, if it was my buddy Paul, they're all 5'7", blonde, and by the 3rd date they're wearing cowboy boots, jeans, and a button-down collar shirt. But, you know, I've dated brown girls, beige girls, you know, Asian girls, tall girls, short girls. You know, they have nothing in common." He said, "Oh, they all have something in common." I said, what is that? He said, none of them want to be with you. I said, if you're trying to cheer me up, we are headed in the wrong direction. I said, okay. He said, do you know what you want in your next wife? I said, yes, I have a very clear idea. He said, great, make a list and write it down. So I wrote on the list of all the things I wanted from my next wife. And then he read the list aloud. He said, this is a very impressive list. And so he said, okay, if you were to meet this woman tomorrow, how attractive would she find you? I said, again, if this is designed to cheer me up, we are headed in the wrong direction. And he said, let me give you a piece of advice. Become the man that she wants to find, and you don't have to find her, she'll find you. That was October 1992. About a month later, a friend came to me and said, I've got a seminar you should come to. It's Tom Hopkins and Jim Rohn. It's $350. You should do it. I said, you know, I'm just newly divorced. I took 5 suits in the car with the payments on it. I don't have $350. He said, scrape the $350 together and go. I'm going to suggest to you that on that day, Jim Rohn, I spent the $350. And today I can actually say I invested the $350 because it changed my life. And since 1992, I've probably spent more than $1 million on seminars, books, classes. Now, I can tell you that I cheated because I bought a seminar company for about $150,000, and then I paid speakers to come to Toronto and I resold the tickets. But I'm going to suggest I made an investment. And what I'd like to do with you today is share with you what I've distilled as a simple recipe to get whatever it is you want. Does that make sense? Say yes. So the recipe is really easy. I wrote this program in 1995, and the program is called 4, Score, and 7 Questions. And it's an acronym, F-O-R-E, for Obvious Result Enhancement. And it's SCORE. S is set clear goals. C is choose a course of action. O is operate with discipline. R is review and revise. And E is enjoy yourself. And then I come with 7 questions each day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle each of these things really quickly. But can we agree that 30 minutes we have together, raise your hand, is not enough time to do it all? Say yes. Okay, so we're going to go very quickly. So let's talk about setting clear goals. So here's an interesting thing. How many people know about Sven and Ollie? Sven and Ollie are 2 hunters, and they're in the forest, and they're deer hunting, and they get a 10-point buck. They shoot a 10-point buck, and they're trying to pull the deer out of the bush by its hind legs. And of course, the antlers are getting caught in the trees and caught in the trees and caught in the trees, but they keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. Until somebody comes along and says, you know, the easy way to get the deer out of the bush is to carry it by the antlers. So Sven and Ollie go around and grab the antlers, and they're making much more progress. In fact, they're going about 3 times as fast as previous. And Sven says to Ollie, isn't this a good idea? Ollie says, it's a good idea, but we're getting further and further away from the truck. They were pulling it by the hind legs in this direction. They grabbed it by the antlers and they pulled it the other direction. So I'm going to suggest to you that whether you want more money, whether you want to be a better spouse, whether you want to go on more vacations, whether you want more free time, you need to be very clear about where you want to be. Does that make sense? So if anyone's got a pen, you might want to write this down. Your goals should be SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-dated. You see, a bad goal is I want to be skinny. Because if I want to be skinny, that's not measurable. And we have lots of young adults starving themselves to death because thin is never thin enough. Make sense? So let's move on to choosing a course of action. How many of you have a mom who was like my mom? When I grew up in Kapuskasing, Ontario, for those of you who don't know, if you drive south, you can drive to Lexington, Kentucky, or you can drive exactly the same distance north and arrive in Kapuskasing, Ontario. So at our house, my mother had 3 questions before we could do anything. The first question was, where are you going? The second question was, when will you be back? And the third and most important question was, who are you going with? And if your parents were like my mother, depending on who you were going with, you were no longer allowed to go. In fact, there were, my parents wouldn't let me go to the library with the wrong people, and they let me go just about anywhere with the right people. Which begs the question, of course, as an adult, how conscious are you of who you're going with? One of the interesting things I find is people enter a workplace and they complain about how dumb their coworkers are, or how lazy their coworkers are, or how terrible their workplace is. And it makes me ask myself, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are lousy, is that making you a better person, or are you more likely picking up some of their bad habits? Again, raise your hand if you want to make more money. So here's the interesting thing. Interesting statistic, by the way. Take a look at your 5 closest friends. Ask your 5 closest friends what they make for a living, and you're most likely going to make the middle of what they make. If you want to make more money, you need to hang around with people who make more money. If you want to be a better parent, you need to hang around with people who are better parents. If you want to go on more vacations, you need to hang around with people who take more vacations. Make sense? Say yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry, you had your hand in the air. I thought you had a question. I guess not. Okay. So, we've set clear goals. We've chosen a course of action. Let's talk about operating with discipline. How many people have heard this? Winners never quit. And quitters never win. So I'm currently on day 6 of a workout routine. I created it for myself. It's WTF 90. Weaver trains for 90 days. It's the program, WTF 90. And here's what I discovered. I went to other people who had lost weight. In fact, my coach is a woman by the name of Tracy Shotanis. Tracy Shotanis was the first fitness world champion. And I said to her, what do you think I should do? She goes, well, in addition to doing the exercises, in addition to doing those things, you're going to have to quit. I said, what am I going to have to quit? You're going to have to quit eating sugar. So when I hear winners never quit, there are some things for success that you're going to need to quit doing. Does that make sense? Now they say quitters never win. Do I have any ex-smokers in the room? Raise your hand if you're an ex-smoker. Did you know that ex-smokers win? Because 1 year of non-smoking gets you back 10 years of smoking. And if you go 10 years of not smoking, it's as though you never smoked at all. So I'm going to suggest that many of us, when we're trying to be successful at anything, hang on to certain things. And so we need discipline. So how do we create discipline? And I'm going to suggest that the most powerful book that you will ever read is the book you write. Now, women are more successful generally than men. And I'm going to say that's true because women buy empty books called diaries. Now, men who need to be men can call them journals. But I'm going to suggest that in order to operate with discipline, you must document. Here's what's interesting. People overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they do in 5 years. And the reason is most people fall short in year 1 and stop. It's the people who actually stay on the path for 5 years who get exponentially better at anything. Whether you're saving money, whether you're being a better parent, whether you're looking for career advancement. So let's talk about, we've talked about setting clear goals, we've talked about choosing a course of action, we've talked about operating with discipline. Now I want to talk about review and revise. People who keep records set records. You know, we have the Commonwealth Games, or the Pan Am Games coming to Toronto. And you'll notice that in the 100-meter dash, they have stopwatches. Because without a stopwatch, we might know who came first, but would we know if it was a record or not? And so when we look at people who are training for elite athletics, they look to do personal bests. In other words, they need to know how they're doing relative to the way they used to do. And what I suggest is most people who are looking to make more money, the people who are looking to take more vacations, the people who are looking to be better parents, the people who are looking to have a better family life, are not keeping records to see the progress they're making. And so consequently, they quit. Now the other thing I look at is with review and revise, you may have chosen specific activities and we want to know, is what I'm doing working? And if you don't keep records, you have no idea. You only know what happened recently. You don't know what's happened over a series. Anybody here in sales, raise your hand, say yes please. Okay, can we agree? No appointments equals no sales, right? Try it, it works. So here's the interesting thing. When we look at reviewing and revising, we look at it and say, rather than saying, hey, how did my last appointment go? We want to look at how many appointments does it take to get a sale. And if we know how many appointments it takes, here's the thing we're going to stop counting. We're going to stop counting results and look at the activities that lead to results. So for example, in my fitness program that I'm working on right now, I'm not measuring how much I weigh. I'm measuring how many times do I go to the gym. Because if I go to the gym and I don't eat sugar, the results will take care of themselves. Otherwise, I might lose several pounds and decide, hey, it's okay to eat sugar today because, you know, I've made progress. Reward myself. Make sense? Say yes. So when we look at review and revise, we want to look at what's working and how do we make it better. And we look at what's not working and say, what are we going to replace it with? Too often we put all our eggs in one basket, one activity, hoping for a result, and it doesn't come. So here's the last thing I want to talk to you about. E is for enjoy yourself. With any task that takes discipline, you need to set interim goals and give yourself a reward. If you reward yourself for the behavior, you'll do it again. Here's a little thing to write down. What gets rewarded gets repeated. What gets rewarded gets repeated. And if you reward yourself for doing the right things, you'll be happier. True? Say yes. So we set clear goals, choose a course of action, operate with discipline, review, for God's sakes, enjoy yourself. Does everyone have a pen and a piece of paper? I want to do a quick exercise. I want you to visit a magical place. And this magical place is called Someday I'll. I want you to write down, someday I'll have this, someday I'll have that, someday I'll do this, someday I'll do that. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I want you to write down all the things someday you will have. On your mark, get set, go. Now what's interesting is I see some people over here have set goals before because they're writing things down, and other people are, uh-oh. Got about 30 seconds left. Okay. Now, I'm not the amazing Kreskin, but I'm going to predict what most of you wrote down. I'm gonna predict that most of you wrote $1 million or a multiple thereof in the bank. Say yes. Most of you picked a car other than the one you're driving today. Most of you picked a home other than the one you're living in. Most of them picked a vacation you want to go on or you want to relive. How am I doing so far? Okay. Now what's interesting is when I give people 2 minutes, most people get stuck. Because after they write down a bunch of financial goals, they get stuck. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that, yes, without a roof over my head and food in my stomach, it's a pretty sad life. So I'm going to agree that we need to have financial goals, without a doubt. By the way, how many of you got 18? Did anybody get 18 in 2 minutes? No? Raise your hand if you had 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 9, very good. Leader in the house, 8, 7, oh, you had 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to prove that the recipe works. I gave you 2 minutes, and the median number was 4. So I'm going to give you 6 categories, because we say that successful people are well-rounded. So there are 6 spokes in the wheel of life. So if I said to you, can you come up with 3 financial goals? The answer is probably yes. The second one would be your family. How you get along with your family determines how you get along with everybody else. Now sometimes it's just training for dealing with miserable people, because we all have a relative that, you know, is difficult to live with. So do you have family goals? Do you have social goals? In other words, you don't get to pick your family, you get to pick your friends. Do you have some social goals? So if we had all the money we needed, a great family life, and all the friends, can we agree that we need some health goals? Because if you're in a hospital, that's not going to do you very good. Okay? Then I'm going to suggest you may want some spiritual goals. Now you don't have to come to my place of worship, but I'm suggesting that in the karma pool, are you a giver, a taker, or are you balanced out? Does that make sense? So I'm going to suggest that we need to. So we've got financial, we've got social, we've got family, we've got and we need mental goals. And the last one is mental goals. Now, how many people have heard the term going mental, or going postal, I should say? So the person loses their job, and they're so upset about losing the job because what they did was so much that they are. So if I said to you, can you make 3 goals in each category? Could you come up with more goals in the 2 minutes? Say yes. So I'm going to suggest to you this, the great news. when it comes to 4 and 7 questions is that you already know the answers. The problem is you don't know the questions. So for example, if your goal, whose goal was to make more money, raise your hand. So let me ask you this, do you know or know of people who make the type of money you want to make? So she knows who she should go ask, but she doesn't necessarily know the questions to go ask them, or she doesn't know the question to get the meeting with them. Does that make sense? So here's the good news, you know the answers. So let me give you 7 questions, that if you ask yourself these 7 questions, honestly, you can achieve anything. So we just did a someday aisle. So the questions I want you to ask yourself in a journal and answer every day in your journal are these 7 questions. First of all, everyday aisle has a AAA rating. So the first A is, what did I accomplish today? You need to remind yourself of what you accomplished every day. The second is, who do I acknowledge today? Because if you thank people properly, they're more willing to help you again. How many of you have helped somebody and they didn't thank you very well, and if they were to ask you again, you'd be like, I'm busy. So who did you acknowledge today? So one of the people I want to acknowledge is Navtej Shando, who's taught me about real estate. So a little acknowledgement. The third A is, what are my action items for tomorrow? You see, most of us waste most of our time saying, what should I do next? What should I do next? What should I do next? And the question you should ask yourself before you go to bed is, what do I have to get done tomorrow? Because here's the interesting thing. What gets scheduled gets done. If it's on a to-do list, you can push it off forever, but if you put it in your calendar and go, what time tomorrow will I do that? So what are my action items for tomorrow? So ISLE is everyday I. What did I improve today? Because if you didn't get better, you got worse. Because the I is getting smaller. So what did I improve today? What did I get better at? S is, what did I share today? You know, people talk about being a self-made millionaire. Well, that's baloney, because somebody either paid you, or a customer either bought from you, or somebody worked with you. So I'm going to suggest to you, if you're sharing with other people, you need to share. So what did I improve? What did I share? The L is, what did I learn today? Now let me tell you about dumb people. You all know dumb people. They've asked you about a problem many, many times. And you say, don't do that. And they do it over and over and over again. So dumb people make the same mistake over and over and over again. Let me tell you about smart people. They make mistakes and they learn from them. Let me tell you about geniuses. Geniuses see a mistake that somebody else made and say, note to self, do not do that. So what did you learn today? And the last one is an E. What did I enjoy today? Because you see, at the end of every day, before you lie down at night, you have to say to yourself, what part of today was fun? Because if I can't find anything out of today that was fun, it's going to make it really hard to have the discipline to get up and do it again tomorrow. Make sense? Say yes. So, we have 4 score and 7 questions. And we have the AAA. Who did I acknowledge? What did I accomplish? What are my action items for tomorrow? What did I improve? What did I share? What did I learn? What did I enjoy? If you answer the 7 questions, you'll find whatever you're looking for. Make sense? Say yes. I thank you so much for your time and attention, and I look forward to serving you. I'll be collecting the forms at the back of the room. Thank you, everyone.